Dear class, hello. I hope you're all in good shape this Thanksgiving weekend, unlike any Thanksgiving weekend for as long as anyone can remember. I'm not naturally a celebrant of Thanksgiving, having been raised without it, raised by English-speaking parents in America, but not with the rituals, the American rituals, and then at school in Britain, and only much later invited to Thanksgiving by friends kindly year after year, making us unclear in our minds as to whether we were the token Indians. I'm not sure that involves even an understanding of what Thanksgiving is. But whatever it is, there hasn't been a lot of visiting compared to previous years. Some of you maybe are involved in what, for many of us, loving our family, though we might, is the nightmare of family get-togethers. Some of you released from this terrible threat. But perhaps sad and lonely precisely because of the absence of a familiar landmark in the year. But I hope you're surviving it well. I'm here in my room in the forest, in the wild forest of Overlook Mountain, and the sunshine is creeping in my window and throwing strange shadows on my face, perhaps making me look a little as though I might be a Native American with some interesting designs on my flesh. So today I want to talk a little with you about our final odd couple, our final module of this class, which suddenly, for no good reason, took off in my head with a similarity with couples of authors from all across the spectrum of the Western canon, naming themselves to us only in a kind of euphony. That's to say, I heard Beowulf, necessarily a good place to start, and then I heard Beckett. I teamed them for their B rather than for any other connection. Catullus and Congreve were more obviously connected. It turned out that Beowulf and Beckett were curiously well connected to the extent that Beowulf is in fact a kind of a Christian threnody. It's a lament for the descendants of Cain, who finally turn out to be the monster Grendel. And Crap, who's a little bit of a monster himself in Beckett's work, is also somebody who has got lost, fallen out of the Christian tradition. And like everybody in Beckett's work, although he's a Protestant, an Irish Protestant, not an Irish Catholic, they reference the Bible and Christianity a great deal. And so there was a surprising amount in common between Beowulf and Crap. Catullus and Congreve inevitably are relevant to all considerations of love. Dante and Diderot challenged us to consider the modernity which is born in Dante's great work, and which takes a whole new direction under Diderot in the Enlightenment. And so at last, to Aeschylus, whom you call mispronounce Aeschylus. So there we've got an E, and the first writer that came to my mind, I'm afraid, as spontaneously and as unplanned as the others. In this case, the E that came to mind was Elroy. Who knows why? And then, of course, you discover why. There are always reasons, but you don't know them until you exhume the corpse of your decision and see what lay within it. In this case, of course, I realized that in thinking of one of James Elroy's many, many novels, but one of the best known thinking of the Black Dahlia. The Black Dahlia is a double tale of matricide in a most unusual way, because the author himself suffered the loss of his mother when he was 10 to rape and murder, in fact. And in the fictional novel, in the novel that is The Black Dahlia, one of the characters has an obsession with the murder of a figure who functions in the book as a mother substitute. So, if you like, it's a double matricide. And of course, although we only began with Aeschylus's Agamemnon and did not move forwards to the libation bearers, where we get an actual matricide, we get the setup in the play that we read, where Agamemnon's wife, mother of the murdered Iphigenia, takes her revenge on her husband, and in doing so sets up a matricide which is in fact at the core of the Oresteia trilogy, series of plays, in which Agamemnon's son feels obliged to risk the terrible sin, the terrible crime of matricide in revenging his father. And so he in turn becomes pursued by the Furies, literally the Furies who manifest themselves in the Theatre of Dionysus, an event, the entry of the Furies, so terrifying for the audience that it is said that pregnant women gave birth in terror, in alarm, the shock of it. So the remainder of the Oresteia concerns itself with whether matricide, and really any crime, because if matricide can possibly be forgiven, then any crime can be forgiven. There is a way in which the complexity of events leading to a matricide can also lead to a greater understanding if we have some source of that understanding, not just the god, but some human source, which is why a court is created by Aeschylus at the end of the Oresteia, the court of the Areopagus, and this court is actually composed of the Furies given togas, brought into the community to be judges, to be consulted, to be placated with sacrifices, to have their lair, their cave, in the city, not outside. Meanwhile, in Elroy's world, another matricide is investigated by a young man obsessed with this crime. And I thought it might be interesting, I had forgotten the potential echo here, I thought it might be interesting for us to step right across the 2,500-year chasm that is our syllabus, from the Agamemnon to the contemporary scene, and that could have led us to any of hundreds and hundreds of wonderful writers that I would love for you to have read soon, or to read soon. And the letter E made me light on Elroy, an interesting writer who I feel you should read, who is considered to be among the great American writers of the last century by many. But we have much more time to read, those of us who grew up in my generation now, increasingly distant and strange. And many of us who enjoyed reading, read as a matter of course the great noir authors of the 20th century, in particular Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett, writing in the 30s and through into the early 50s. This was the great age of noir. And these are still certainly considered, Chandler would be placed probably on the 10 greatest American writers list by many connoisseurs of literature. Ellroy is writing his famous LA Quartet, which includes LA Confidential, which was made into a tremendous film, just as so many of Hammett's work, in particular the Maltese Falcon, and so many of Chandler's noir masterpieces, from The Big Sleep through Farewell My Lovely, to The Long Goodbye. And it's quite noticeable, if you're familiar at all with any of these works as fiction, how different what's called the neo-noir is how Ellroy's work is referred to. It's actually much punchier. Ellroy is famous for his electric style of short jabs, to use a metaphor that's relevant to this book, in which boxing is important. And it's partly his style that has made him so memorable, and given neo-noir a distinctive tone. But I think it's also the way in which he moves well out of the world of, relatively speaking, romantic closure. And I don't mean love story closure, but the idealistic pursuit of a resolution. Because Ellroy moves us into a world which is so winding and complex in its motivations, there can be no simple resolution. This book, if you read it to the end, is very much a novel, as opposed to a thriller. It has plenty of thriller elements. It takes place in the underworld and the police world, a world of corrupt Los Angeles immediately after the end of the Second World War, so 40, 50 years before the time in which Ellroy was writing, a time of famous mobsters connected to famous media and arts personalities, a very dark world through which the policemen tread, not as down these dark streets a man must go in Chandler's world of genuine heroes, but in fact people, policemen, detectives, very far from classic heroism. And so Ellroy is painting a picture of a darker America, or in a darker world, a more sinister underworld, a more confusing morality, and painting a picture of heroes who are already deeply in debt morally to their own past. So it's, in a sense, this neo-noir world is much more grown up than the world of the great noir writers, because its themes are so tangled, its sense of the world is so tangled, that it carries us forwards. I think carries the novel itself forwards into being a more tangled and a more grown-up event. I hope you have a chance to read the book, if you enjoy it. If you don't, then just have a glance into it and put it away. It might well not be to your taste, because it is a thriller as a genre. As I say, I think it takes the thriller into the world of the novel, precisely because of the complexity of the resolution and of the moral vision. But I hope there are some of you who enjoy that kind of thing. I'm a passionate thriller reader myself, so I was amused to find Ellroy coming into my mind when I was seeking a modern author under the letter E. I met Ellroy when he came to Britain, publicizing one of his books, but I haven't thought about him or his work for quite a while. So may you enjoy it, and may you survive this strangely blighted Thanksgiving. Fond thoughts, fond regards from your professor. Bye now.